In this video, we'll create a SIP roof, a structural insulated panel roof system, by assembling the necessary roof layers. Note that I've drawn SIP walls simply by modifying the default SIP wall type that ships with the program. I'll double click one of them to open it, and we'll go to Wall Types. Here we'll see I've renamed it, and if we click Define, we can see the assembly. Exterior layers are here, siding with house wrap, and the main layers are the SIP panel with OSB on either side of the expanded polystyrene insulation. The thicknesses are recorded, and the continuous R value specified for this particular panel can be entered. Notice also that the floor platform is set to build to the exterior of layer 3, the outermost main layer here, the outside of our SIP panel. So we want to build our floor platform to go to the outside of the SIP panel. But we must do one more thing. I'll click OK, and we'll go to the structure panel. And here in platform intersections, we must specify that the wall stop at the floor below, and that it not penetrate on through to the foundation wall, because it would by default since it has no framing in it. But with this check, you can see that when I framed the floor system, it did extend out to the outside of our SIP wall panel. Now we'll create a roof assembly based on SIP wall panels. And we'll begin by going to Defaults for our roofs. I'll double click. And here in the roof panel, the first thing we'll see is we don't want an automatic bird's mouth. So we'll uncheck bird's mouth, and then we can also set these values to 0 by setting 1 to 0 and tabbing. They'll both go to 0. In the Options panel, I'll decide that I want square cut eaves. And in the Structure panel, we don't need to worry about rafter spacing because we're not going to be framing. So we also don't need to worry about the roof size specifications since we're not framing. But we will work with the roof layers. We'll begin with the finish layers, which I've already assembled. If I click at it, you'll see there are 4. The first one is asphalt roofing. The second one is a roofing underlayment. The third one is OSB. And the fourth one is a ventilation space that's created by using 1x4 furring. This ventilation space will be just above the SIP panel and will provide ventilation on the cold side of it in order to prevent moisture damage to its exterior. So these finished layers get us right down to the structural layer where we're going to create the SIP panel. If I click Edit, you'll see I have not done that. We'll have to do that now. I currently have a nominal 2x10 lumber material here, and I don't want to use it. So we'll insert some layers. By clicking here, we can insert several. Then I'll click on the layer with the framing and just delete it. And then we'll begin creating the structure layers. The first one is going to be a building paper. So I'll just give it a nominal 1/16 of an inch thickness and select a material. And we'll search the library for building paper. And here's building paper. So we can choose it and move on to the next layer, which is going to be one of our OSB components of the panel. I know it's 7/16 of an inch thick, and I need to find the material. I'm going to click Select Material and search the library for OSB. Choose this OSB and click OK. So I've now chosen OSB, and if it was not in my planned materials list, it is now because we've just chosen it. And actually I don't want to use it. I want to modify it. So I'm going to click Select Material again and go to Plan Materials, where I should be automatically and conveniently taken to the OSB. I might use OSB in the plan elsewhere, so I'm going to copy it and make an OSB for the SIP panel. And this will allow me to understand when I'm looking at my materials list which OSB belongs to the panels that I'm ordering and which OSB should be ordered separately. So I only wanted to change the name to get a separate listing item. And if I like, I can click Add to Library to add this new material to the library where I can then use it later in other plans. So I'll click OK, and we'll work on the next layer. The next layer, I know from my manufacturer, is going to be 11 and 5/16, and it's the foam core of the SIP panel. So we'll click Select Material, and we'll find the insulation EPS that I've already created. Again, simply by copying another material, renaming it, and giving it any additional properties I'd like as well. If we click Edit, we'll see that in this case, the only thing I've done is change the name, using another insulation material as my base. So we'll click OK to add this. And we also want this layer to be able to auto detail as insulation. So we'll check that, and we'll see what that means in a moment. And then we need the final layer for the structural core, and that's going to be the 7/16 OSB. And if I'm in Plan Materials, I should be able to type OS and get to OSB SIP panel and click OK. And now I have my 12 1/4 dimensionally accurate SIP roof panel. Let's click OK, and note that if we want to, we could uncheck Use Room Ceiling Finish and then edit this to create layers for the ceiling based on layers other than what's going to be used in the room. But I'm going to use the default room ceiling finish, which I know to be 5/8 drywall, and it will be applied, and additional material layers for the ceiling will not be needed. You can use or not use soffits as you wish, and we'll click OK to complete our changes to the roof defaults. And we're now ready to build our roof. So I'll double click here, and in the Build Roof dialog, click Build Roof Planes, and we see our SIP roof. I also have a camera view here, which I've already activated, so we'll just switch to it. And then we'll use the cross-section slider to take a look at this. So we can represent our thicker walls. We can have accurate dimensioned wall positions in the plan and section views, so we can work from them as we complete the design. If we go to the section view, you'll see we can auto detail it, and because we've so specified, we'll get insulation here as well as here. But I'm going to undo that, because if you would like to work in this section view to create additional details that are related to the SIP construction, you may wish to avoid auto detailing fills such as insulation. So I will begin to create one additional detail, and you can have many by going to CAD and selecting CAD Detail from View. You will get one CAD detail with an automatic name, but you can create several and they save with the plan. And you can manage your CAD details in CAD Detail Management. So for example, I could rename this. Let's call it SIP Elevation 1. And then we can begin to work in this detail. You can select individual lines because that's all you have. Back in the section view, you had Chief Architect components. You could select a floor joist, for example. But all that's been converted into lines. That's all you have now. And each line can be selected and edited in a variety of ways. Note that the auto detail fills, such as insulation, would have been converted into very many short lines, very difficult to edit, which is why we didn't auto detail the section view before converting it into a CAD detail. We can add the insulation later as part of the detail. So if I select this line and I open it, I can go to Line Style and discover what layer it's on. And then I can click Define, and I could choose to hide all of those lines and find out if there are other lines on other layers. And I can get a sense of what I'm working with. You can also choose to lock any of the line layers that you find or not. You can lock them or modify them. One other option that's kind of useful is to create a new layer as your drawing layer. So I'm in the section view layer set. I'll click here and I'll say let's have a new layer, and I'll name it SIP components or SIP component details, for example, and click OK. So I have this new layer. I can also maybe choose to draw in a color I can see easily, at least for a while, and change colors back to what I want later. So now that I've created this new layer that I'm going to draw with, I can click here to specify the current CAD drawing layer. Click that and I'll search for SIP and make SIP component details my current drawing layer, so that now when I draw, I am drawing on that layer and I'm not going to be interfering with the other layers that are present. And I can begin to edit these. I'll make this parallel, for example, to this, and I can place these. I'll use point-to-point move, for example, to place this here. And we can use our CAD tools to detail to the level desired, and we can create as many details as we wish to have and use them in our construction documents. You may also be able to get details from the manufacturer of the SIP panel.